we need more platforms, more avenues for people to be making things, people to be getting together. And rather than trying to push everyone under the same umbrella or thinking this false idea that we all want the same thing, we should be actively acknowledging that people can exist alongside each other without having to own the idea, without having to have a stake in each other's processes. And so there are a whole bunch of different organizations and communities and collectives all across Melbourne and all across Australia. And many of them work synergistically. Some of them work antagonistically, and that's all good. In fact, that antagonism creates a kind of growth in culture and the understanding of your own position. If on the other hand, you have a kind of unchecked organism that continues to spread itself over every single aspect and put its fingers in all the different pies, then you can't create a fringe, or rather that mainstream becomes too monolithic. So as examples, in Melbourne, we have SK Bar and All Day Breakfast and Wonder Consortium and Hover Garden and Freeplay and IGDA and GCAP, and they're all different structures for different things, and their purposes might be a little fuzzy at the edges, but they're there for a reason. And I think that's really crucial to make sure that that reason is being served, and to ensure that you recognize when there's something that you can do to help somebody else. You don't just take over their voice, but rather amplify it. So when you recognize that somebody else is, like a really obvious example would be a Women in Games group. I don't have anything to do with that, and that's good, nor should I want to. And equally, I don't have anything really to do with SK Bar, which is a really great bar, which showcases independent video games and all sorts of other artistic endeavors. But I am friends with Louis and many of the people who work there, and I think it's a phenomenal addition to this landscape, this ecosystem that we're creating. And I can have disagreements, and that's perfectly fine. For example, if there's a curatorial decision I dislike, then I get to have that opinion and say, I don't think you should have had that thing, knowing that that opinion might also not be listened to. But contrast that with, I don't acknowledge the existence of a particular group, and I don't want them to exist. There's a tendency for the narrative to be dominated by individuals, and think about auteurs. And it's a holdover in some ways from film direction and how we think things are made creatively. It's kind of antiquated at best and damaging at worst. The metaphor of the person who creates the game and everyone else who helps them make it, or the person who runs the community and the people who just follow. Rather, these communities are driven by the people inside of them. That culture doesn't come from nowhere. On the other hand, it's individuals who promote particular ideas and ideologies. On one hand, I think that people who are community leaders need to take responsibility, and they need to recognize that their active curation of a space's culture is necessary. And if they fail to create particular culture that they wanted to, for example, a safe space, then that is their fault. And the onus is on them to do something about it. Equally, I think that's true of people who are inside of communities, myself included. We need to become more aware of our role in creating community cultures, rather than just waiting for permission or assuming that somebody else is going to fix the problem or address this issue. Even the idea of fixing the problem is not quite the right thinking. It's much more an ongoing process of communication, like any relationship is. And communities are just huge macrocosmic relationships.